The millennial work crisis. What will be the compound long-term effects of a generation that has not been able to, on the large part, to find and maintain long-term employment? How will this affect society, and how will this affect them on a personal level? It is difficult for so many millennials to find consistent long-term employment. Employment that allows them to gain mastery of their abilities and mastery of their skills to better serve and better build up our civilization. Because modern employment is often so short term, and by some reports, 3.5 years, and some reports even say less, depending on the generation, how does one gain mastery in any line of work? And could this affect other aspects of life? To explain this concept, let me use a metaphor that I developed to help explain this. This metaphor uses martial arts. Now imagine, for a moment, you decide to take up a new martial art, and so you find yourself a dojo. But something's unusual. In this case, you're only allowed to achieve the orange belt. You can't go past that. And you're told if you try to go past the orange belt, you can't compete in tournaments anymore. And you're only allowed to train at this dojo for maybe 2 or 3 years, and that's it. How will this affect your self-esteem? Knowing that you're not allowed to get the other belts. You got the white belt, you got the yellow belt, but you have to stop at the orange belt. How much mastery can you really gain at an orange belt level? White, you're just starting. Yellow, you kind of got the basics down. Orange, you kind of got the basics, you got basic proficiency. Red, it starts to be serious. Then you finally, when you get to the greens, the browns, the purples, now we're getting somewhere. Now you start to really get good. Then finally you get the black belt, and you've gained mastery. But you're only allowed to achieve the orange belt. How will this affect your self-esteem and your overall mental health, being held back and not being able to achieve your potential? Now imagine only achieving orange belt level proficiency in other aspects of life. Your work life, let's say at work you only achieve the orange belt level, if you can use that as a metaphor. Your ability to maintain your own house or pay your bills, orange belt level at best. The ability to cook, the ability to look after yourself, orange belt level. Financial investment, well, because of lack of long-term employment, many millennials are, in my opinion, kind of at a white belt to yellow belt level because they don't have the capital to experiment and to invest with or to socialize. You have to go out. You have to spend time with people. You need the economic capital to actually afford to do things. If you can't afford to do things, that's just another night at home watching TV when you could be out socializing. That's another compound consequence of not gaining mastery in one aspect of life. So going through life, more or less only operating at an orange belt level, you you can see the compound consequences this will have for that individual. Now back to the workplace. Let's say you decide to go to a restaurant to eat out. And at this restaurant, the chef's been working there for 8 years. The waitress has been there for 5 years. They've been there so long, they know the recipes. They know how long it takes to cook that item or that item. And after 5 years doing the same job, the waitress is really good and really organized and really on top of her game. The chef, he knows his game very, very well. So when you go to that restaurant, you're going to have a great experience. However, if everyone at this restaurant's only been working there for 1 year or less, the service is going to be lousy. The chef doesn't know the recipes. He doesn't know how long that takes to cook. The waitress is not organized. Things are chaotic. Their overall quality of service is very, very low. So your quality of experience is now less because of lack of experience of the people working there. So now combine that with other lines of work, other lines of employment where people are only there for 3 years or less. Then they go to a different job that's maybe not even semi-related, and you have a 1 year or 2 year employment. Then you move on. Then you have gaps of being unemployed or going back to school. And you have a generation that has not gained mastery in the workforce and in other aspects of their life. Again, compound consequences. This, I think, will have a very pronounced and negative effect on our society if we don't deal with this. Long-term employment enables a person to have long-term goals, like starting a family, buying a house, building up a social network, and possibly even starting one's own business or self-employment. Because if there's long-term employment, there's a consistent supply of capital, a consistent supply of income that enables that individual to work on their goals and work on their skills and abilities. If this is lacking, there is often a domino effect. If that fails to launch, then that will fail, then that will fail, then that will fail, and so on and so on. This is a very big problem. And I think we as a civilization owe it to the millennials to help them out, to help them find consistent income, and to stop making fun of them. I think that's very unbecoming, especially when the baby boomers had it so good. I'm going to challenge my audience. Try to come up with an estimate of how much money someone would need to make by today's standards to have the same standard of living that the average baby boomer had back in the 1970s. I've heard some very interesting estimates and how really unattainable it is for the average person today. So for these reasons, I think we owe it to the millennial generation to be easier on them and not to be so hard on them. One only needs to remember the education that they received and what they were told, and also the economic realities they inherited, and also how they were prepared for the workforce. They weren't given the tools they needed to succeed. So the outcome we see today is simply a result and failing of the older generations. So let us help them out and let us build them up. so they can become productive members of society.